You're watching the Eternal Tournament Series.
Welcome, everybody, to the Eternal Tournament Series. We're back. I am Calimdir, and in the booth today with me is SirRhino to break down everything.
Hello. Yep. Thank you for having me on as always. It's a pleasure as we get ready for today's week 5 open. We just got done with our fun little mid-season break, and now the players are back and ready to get back to the grind. And we've got a pretty fun matchup lined up here. Danibor versus BruisedByGod. And I think this matchup sort of highlights the big news that we missed while on break. We felt it a little bit in last week's fun team draft tournament, but that is that Jotun Feastcaller got buffed to a 4-4. Used to be a 4-3, and we're seeing it show up in both of these decks. How do you think that's going to play out?
Yeah, 7 copies of the legendary giant there. I think it's a big deal. There's a lot of units with 3 attack roaming around these days. And the 4 attack really puts into that range where it becomes difficult to block effectively.
Yeah.
And then both of these decks are super controlling, so I think even more so in this matchup, it's going to be a big deal.
Yeah, Feastcaller was one of those cards that when it first came out, it saw some play. It sort of justified its existence as it could really snowball and take over games. The problem was once Hailstorm got printed, you couldn't really put Feastcaller and Hailstorm in the same deck. And now they got pushed to a 4-4, as we see here. Both decks playing 4 Hailstorm, fully embracing it. BruisedByGod is both of these players are taking a really unique approach, I think, to these decks. Like we just said, it was Felon Control versus Elysian Midrange. These aren't the Felon Control Elysian Midrange decks we're used to. Danibor's packing 11 units, none of which are Black Sky Harbingers. They're in the sideboard. Instead, 4 Misfailed Drake, 4 Channel of the Tempest at the top end. All of these units have Aegis built in. 3 main deck Renifrogs. This is just a deck that is really hard to interact with and is trying to just clear the board, keep whatever cards that are troublesome out of their hands completely, and then close the game from there.
Yeah, both of these decks are taken to the extreme, the most controlling version of their faction combination.
Yeah, BruisedByGod doing sort of a take on Elysian like he's treated Zenith in the past. We're going Power Stone, going bigger, better threats at the top end. This is an Elysian deck. No Cerso, no Dawnwalker, right? These are generally staples when you see Elysian decks, unless they're like Crown or something. Instead, 4 Feastcaller, 4 Behemoth, 4 Champion of Wisdom. The top end is 4 Ascendant, a pair of Carnosaurs and Thunderstrike Dragons, and there's a pair of each of those in the sideboard. This deck can just go big on 2-for-1 threats.
Yeah, definitely. And the Carnosaurs, I think, are going to be huge in a matchup with so much Aegis.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Carnosaur is having a good time right now in a world of Jotun Feastcallers. Although Danibor is packing 4 Annihilates, so that dance should be pretty fun if we get to that point. In the meantime, though, BruisedByGod's other removal spells aren't going to have as much fun. Both decks are effectively blanking Hailstorm because they're also playing Hailstorm. So Hailstorm will just be on like Aegis pop and weird combat damage cleanup duty. It'll be really fun to see both players play around and play with their seemingly dead Hailstorms.
Definitely. And players should be getting into the match shortly. Who do you think is favored between Elysian and Felon here?
This is a tricky one. I want to say...
I'm leaning Elysian right now.
Yeah, I kind of like Felon because it's got that kind of Channel the Tempest angle where it can go over the top if it can handle the Elysian early game. And BruisedByGod's card draw is Strategize and Feastcaller. There's no Wisdoms. So he's a little behind on that angle. And Danibor's packing a lot of removal. But yeah, you might be right. He might not be packing enough to handle the ground pressure from BruisedByGod.
Yeah, I think BruisedByGod's deck is just a little more proactive. However, something like an early Rain of Frogs can easily shut down BruisedByGod and Danibor a huge advantage. So we'll see as the match starts to play out here.
Yeah, the other interesting angle that BruisedByGod he has, and we see it in his hand, is Power Stone, right? That allows him to accelerate into Feastcallers or whatever earlier, provided he has the influence.
Yeah, we're gonna see that here as he's gonna be able to get down an early 4/4, which not ideal from that
Mhm.
Champion of Wisdom. Champion of Wisdom really shines once you get it to that 6/6 flying. Um, but as we can see in Danibor's hand, dodges that Annihilate, and it's gonna have to use an In Cold Blood to take care of it.
Yeah, and if they want to use In Cold Blood this turn, that means their only power left in hand's a Felon Banner, which means Danibor will need to draw undepleted power to deploy this one of the pair of his Jotun Feast colors. So this could potentially be a huge tempo swing for BruisedByGod, although his follow-up turn is simply a strategize.
A pretty good strategize at that, though.
Mhm.
Being able to get that Sandstorm Titan. Another interesting angle I just thought about, Equivocate, not likely going to be putting many cards back in Danibor's hands, seeing as there's so much Aegis, might end up just being extra random units to play around removal.
Yeah, it's a little tricky here because again, all of Danibor's units naturally come with Aegis, so you have to pop the Aegis, then cast Equivocate on the unit. And Danibor is basically always going to have face Aegis because of Mistveil Drake, so that unit's not even going to transform because
Yeah.
it'll the Equivocate transform part of it will get blocked by Danibor's face Aegis. So Equivocate is largely just teleport in
For
this
right
matchup.
here. Yeah. No, it's largely going to be, oh, wow, he didn't Equivocate. Is it only your own units?
No, you can Equivocate your own
Or,
units.
yeah, okay. Yeah, because I was thinking BruisedByGod would just end up using it to
Mhm.
draw an extra random 4-drop or something like that. As again, there's the Carnosaur coming in and take care of that Jotun Feast Caller, which I was thinking was going to be some of the biggest swings in this matchup.
Yeah, but here we see Mistveil Drake comes down. It's a 6/6 flying Aegis. And I think BruisedByGod just saved Equivocate because he wanted to use it to save his units that aren't Sandstorm Titan. Like
Right.
Sandstorm Titan isn't good against Mistveil Drake. It's a 6/6. So like saving it and turning into a random 4-drop probably isn't going to
Yeah.
be good against Mistveil Drake either. Whereas equivocating your 6 or 5 drops, as we see World Bear Behemoth come down, could be more valuable.
Yeah, there's a lot of powerful 6-drops in Eternal.
Mhm.
I think at 6 and 7, you start getting really likely to hit powerful units off of
Ooh.
Equivocate. Whereas at 4, there's a lot of misses.
Danibor goes fishing with wisdom and finds an annihilate. So BruisedByGod won't be able to go off with the Behemoth Mystic Ascendant combo, but BruisedByGod draws a second Mystic Ascendant for his troubles and has a pretty nice board state here.
Yeah, and Mistveil Drake is pretty good when your opponent is trying to remove your threats, but it's not anywhere near as powerful as Mystic Ascendant in this control mirror.
Yeah, the story of this game is, Annihilate's been fantastic so far, but BruisedByGod's been simply overwhelming the removal that Danibor has access to. And Wisdom of the Elders is nice, but it's not as nice as 2 active Mystic Ascendants in play for BruisedByGod.
Right. And it's not as good as Wisdom every turn for free.
Yeah.
Danibor does have some outs, but very, very unlikely at this point.
Yeah, drawing things like Hailstorm or Stray into Shadow aren't going to do a lot of work here, and instead we simply see a Seek Power as the draw. Meanwhile, BruisedByGod has a pair of Feast colors of his own. If he gets to untap here, I'll have Equivocate and Unseal up, and I don't see how there's any way Danibor can get back in this.
Yeah, I think it needed to be this turn. I think he needed to draw another removal spell for one of these Mystic Ascendants in the form of Channel the Tempest or in Cold Blood or something. But
Yeah.
now I think it's too late.
Yeah, now simply BruisedByGod is way ahead on board, way ahead in hand, way ahead in every facet of the game. Danibor has to chump block to avoid death, and we'll probably scoop it up next turn. And I think really BruisedByGod highlighting the power of the new card back, really just overwhelming Danibor with swag here.
Absolutely.
I mean, how do you feel about players going without the new card back, trying to be nonconformist by conforming to the old ways? Like do you think that's what do you think on that call?
I'm conflicted because I haven't switched to the new card back myself because I just saw everybody using it and I was like,
yeah,
that's pretty cool, but everybody's using it now.
Yeah, it's tough because it's not quite exclusive enough for some of the elitists out there. I think.
Yeah, like me. I can't play a tier deck if there's not at least one faction you're not expecting or one card you're not expecting. It's not worth playing. So the card back, I don't know. I'm conflicted.
Mm-hmm.
I'm waiting for the third one to come out.
Yeah, right now with just 2 card backs, it's a really stale card back meta game.
Right.
I think we really need a third and potentially fourth card back to really shake things up. In the meantime, I guess we're still playing a match of Eternal here, and they're sideboarding. So, what do you expect to see as far as changes go? I know we already talked about how good we think Predatory Carnosaur is, and BruisedByGod's got a pair of those in the side. Do you think he's going to bring in anything else to try and close out this match?
So from BruisedByGod's side, I don't think he has to do as much work. I like Backlash. I certainly don't mind it. I don't think there's enough freeze effects for Infinite Hourglass. There's no permafrost. Yeah, there's none. There's 0. That's definitely not enough. But yeah, I like the Carnosaurs. I like the Thunder Strikes. And I like the counters, the negates rather, Backlash and Unseal. I just don't know how many you can afford to bring in. And I don't know that Disjunction is worth it. The only card that you would expect to see is Azindel's Gift and maybe the last word. And I think considering that BruisedByGod is running Cobalt Waystone, it might not even be worth worrying about.
Yeah, I think the question here becomes, all right, you're bringing in at least Carnosaur, but how many cards just in your main deck do you feel are dead and you want to remove, right? Equivocate, Hailstorm, Permafrost from BruisedByGod. Like, all of your opponent's units have Aegis. They might bring in some Black Sky Harbingers. They might not. But either way, are you just looking to cut all of those and just add in other things that aren't removal spells? And once you start looking at that, it's like, okay, maybe Disjunction is better than a random Permafrost or the extra backlashes and unseals.
Right, because you just between the removal, all that we named there, that's 11 cards. That's a ton of cards.
Yes, and I think that might, whereas Danibor does not have that issue. All of his removal is still pretty good, so his sideboard options are a little bit tighter. I think Stray into Shadow could go and find room for some other cards, like probably the Feeding Times are coming in, just more expensive, bulky 4-cost removal. Do you think the Rain of Frogs stays in? Typically, I don't like it against mid-range, but here might be different.
Yeah, that's the big question, because is BruisedByGod's deck slow enough for Rain of Frogs to be good? And if you're not casting Rain of Frogs, how are you winning this game? Because your creatures are just much slower. Your game plan is overall much slower than BruisedByGod's. The other thing I'm thinking about is Harbinger, because just a flying threat is actually very relevant in these mid-rangey creature beats type matchups, and just having the flying lifesteal plus with Champion of Cunning, it actually does become a relevant threat. So I would like to see that come in if there's enough stuff to take out. But I think between all of the removal that being still live mostly, and I think Rain of Frogs probably staying in personally.
It did
there
stay
might not
in
be enough space.
as we're looking at this game that's underway. Both players just drawing cards, and our hand cam appears to just have gone insane. So we'll figure that out. But in the meantime, Rain of Frogs is hitting BruisedByGod. Something's going to get turned into a frog. We're not sure what, as we we know at least he maybe had some sort of dinosaur. All right, there we go. Oh, there's a pair of Mystic Ascendants in BruisedByGod's hand.
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah. And I think this is the big argument for keeping in Rain of Frogs, especially post-board. You expected more Carnosaurs to come in. They already had 4 Mystic Ascendant. They probably were bringing in Thunderstrike Dragon. All of those cards are just excellent Rain of Frog hits when your opponent's not a Chalice deck, not an Obelisk deck, not really taking huge advantage of these frogs, especially if you also are bringing in Harbinger. Harbinger's great at cleaning up frogs or keeping in hailstorms.
And we see the other thing about Rain of Frogs is that, as opposed to Azindel's Gift or some of the other answers he has, comes down before that Cobalt Waystone gets online.
Now, Danibor still, with that nice Rain of Frogs hit, is dying, as BruisedByGod's got a whole lot of strength in play. World Bear Behemoth, a 6/6 Champion of Wisdom, and of course, who can forget that one frog? Not 2 frogs. BruisedByGod was conservative here with his frog deployment.
Right. Value each frog life. But we see Danibor is going to be able to slow down BruisedByGod here, takes out the first big threat, and then can actually play this fully activated champion And unfortunate for him, Danibor plays out that in cold blood, taking out the only Annihilate target other than the frogs, and then draws the Annihilate. Probably a little bit of a misplay, but admittingly, World Bear Behemoth is the more valuable target, so understandable.
I'm a little surprised to not see Varus Favor get deployed there. Danibor has an 8-cost spell with Channel the Tempest in hand, and Varus Favor can kill a frog here. All right, now he's going to use a gift as BruisedByGod didn't have that Face Aegis up, although BruisedByGod can use Face Aegis to prevent himself from discarding a card for a turn, and that's what we'll see.
And that should be really all he wants out of that. For the rest of the game, he's going to be playing empty-handed anyway. So.
So now Danibor will use a Varus Favor, turn these frogs from a 2-turn clock into a 4-turn clock. And BBG's got to find something good here, and doesn't look like anything here.
Yeah, I think with the Mystic Ascent is gone, we saw how powerful they were last game. He's really looking for Jotun Feast Caller now as his only card advantage.
Mystic Ascent also kind of loses its luster when you are under a gift, as you can't slow roll your sigils or whatever power. So when you do draw a Mystic Ascent, it would have just been a 4/4. But as you said, they are frogs now. And okay, a Sandstorm Titan, not too shabby, although Danibor has got to channel the Tempest ready for it. Although channel only does 5.
Right now.
Yeah, you've got to Varus Favorite and then channel. Oh, no, never mind.
Nope.
Because you can't play the power.
Valuable. Yeah.
That's why. You could not play the power and then have channel still do enough.
It looks like both the last word and gift came in, and we still see some Hailstorm. So this is, I don't even know how many cards are in Danibor's deck at this point.
Yeah, well, I think last word is just going to end this game.
Right.
Like BruisedByGod's got no answer to it. This is generally where the last word has shined, is against these big clunky time decks that lack reach. And,
especially the slower ones where you only have 1 to 2 threats deployed at a time.
Yeah, the last word can struggle against fire decks, can struggle against other Felm decks because of Varus Favor plus Black Sky Harbinger. But yeah, when your opponent's just playing unit after unit with no reach, trying to rely on Aegis, the last word can just ignore those things.
The last word is the closest thing we have to the Abyss, for those familiar with Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, it just also happens to make your Hailstorm into a harsh rule.
Oh yeah, that too. So yeah, going into game 3 here, looks like players already at mulligans. I still, even while looking at hands here, I'm still favoring BruisedByGod for this last game. I'm sticking to my guns here. Danibor also with a really not ideal hand, only 2 power and nothing to cast. Really looking to get that second primal influence and cast that wisdom before he can even really play the game.
Yeah, Danibor needs to find power and quick, and it needs to be a primal source, and there it is, Cobalt Waystone.
But that's a pretty fast 6/6.
Yeah.
With a Champion of Wisdom there, and it looks like there's a slight visual bug. I have it, and it looks like on the hand cam, Danibor has Aegis, so maybe that's
he should have a Face Aegis. He has 2 Misfell Drakes in hand.
That's what they
do. that is exactly what they do.
So, yeah, that's why I was confused. Okay.
Yeah, it's a card we haven't seen a lot of lately, but I've certainly had my fair share of fun with it. A lot of tutoring for Misfell Drake to give yourself a fast speed Face Aegis. That was big tech back in the day.
Yep. And 2 6/6 Champion of Wisdom down here on turn 6. Danibor still struggling to find power.
Yeah, wow. These Champion of Wisdom showing off how strong they can be. Simply having 2 factions can be such a big boon against these Annihilate decks. And Champion of Wisdom really enjoying the Crest of Wisdoms.
Wow, that Shadow Sigil actually a huge draw. Danibor able to play 2 removal spells this turn. Deck full of 4-cost removal. Not going to cut it for the most part against only be able to kill 1 threat at a time. But with that Annihilate, with that last Shadow Source there, able to take out 2 threats. And this Feeding Time is going to take out this last Mystic Ascendant.
Yeah, and that means if BruisedByGod doesn't find another threat here, it's just going to be Sandstorm Titan against a bunch of Misfell Drakes and Dark Returns. It's going to be tough for BBG here.
Oh, well, that Carnosaur is actually very relevant
Mhm.
because Jotun Feastcaller was probably going to start running amok. But that Carnosaur will take care of it easily. It's not going to be able to get through these Misfell Drakes, though.
Yeah, Danibor was a little tight on power this turn, so looks like the plan here will be feeding time and nothing else. But going forward, we'll have lots of threats. But yeah, this Carnosaur will come down and probably put in some work.
You know what card is missing from this matchup? Ward Wielder.
Yeah, Danibor, I'm sure, considered it. The issue is you're playing a non-Aegis unit in a deck where the rest of your units have Aegis. So I think it was one of those things where maybe in testing they found it was just dying to every removal spell that couldn't be used on anything else.
And this Carnosaur, not really ideal situation for trading 1-for-1 there, but puts Danibor to 1, and I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, so now Danibor will wisely Dark Return this Misfell Drake, which was already buffed from the first time it was summoned, then buffed by Dark Return, and now will get buffed again from being played. And look at this, 10/10 flyer. Carnosaur that.
Value. Yeah, and now that all the removal is out of BruisedByGod's hand, there's really no way to get through this Misfell Drake. BruisedByGod is relying on just drawing more units than Danibor for the rest of the game.
Yeah, BBG's got to go wide here, but Danibor's got more threats. And Danibor can't swing with the 10/10 flyer here. Does that mean a top deck Carnosaur would be lethal? So wouldn't be shocked, though, to see one of these, the 6/6 Misfell Drake maybe start trying to apply a clock at some point.
Yeah, and Dark Return a pretty good draw here. Jotun Feastcaller can get in, cycle itself, and then get Dark Return. Oh, looks like he puts it to the bottom, though.
Yep. And BBG using Unseal on Wisdom means, Feastcaller can swing and be backed up by this Hailstorm.
Yeah, so that means BruisedByGod now facing down lethal in 2 turns.
Jeez, more power. And this is
looks like Danibor is going to close out this series 2-1.
Yeah, BBG, I think, drew a little too much power this game. It's a deck that likes to. It's playing probably 12 6-drops post board, but 2 Mystic Ascendants already got cleaned up. Never saw a Thunderstrike Dragon. And Danibor just going to work with these Misfell Drakes.
And Backlash not going to cut it there. Congratulations to Danibor on his 2-1 victory there. And pretty exciting match, honestly. Seeing so many Jotun Feastcallers is definitely new for me.
I think this is a really cool take on Feld, and one that is largely a response to a predicted metagame for today, where it's like, all right, if everybody else is also playing kind of big mid-range with Feastcaller and Hailstorm, how can I go a little bit above that? And the answer here was, or at least for Danibor's mind, was 4 Misfell Drakes, 4 channels, and all those Rain of Frogs that we saw here. So it certainly paid off in this match, as he takes it over BBG, who was playing kind of, I think, something that Danibor was predicting.
Right. And I think BBG also predicted a similar meta with his exceedingly big Elysian.
So we're going to try and jump into a backup match here. It looks like Suno versus Trumpets. So let me see if I have those. Yeah, all right. I'm jumping in on Trumpets here.
Okay.
And
I have Suno, but they have spectating disabled. So.
Okay, so Trumpets is on some sort of, looks like a Karia blue-ish deck. Post board, Amelie Cloud Marshals in. This is game 3. And Suno's got a pair of Sandstorm Titans on the board and is probably, looks to be playing this is almost certainly a Sentinel spell deck with Feastcaller added in now. So that deck now needs triple primal, triple time triple fire, if I'm not mistaken. Let
Hey,
me see if I can get...
we're already full of fixing. Why not go all out?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's a moment deck. It's got 4 Moment of Creation, 2 Molat and Nakova, 4 Heart of the Vault, 4 Jotun Feast Caller. Yeah, it's got some haymakers.
Yeah, that is a little unexpected.
But in the meantime, it's got to deal with a 6/8 Millie Cloud Marshal, which it certainly can if it's got an Equivocate or something along those lines. But other than that, you don't have a ton of options. And here we see the Sandstorm Titan simply a space in. They do 5 damage, so 5 plus 3 would be 8 for the Samili, and I imagine that's what Trumpets is picturing in their head right now.
Yeah, this is an interesting take on Icaria Blue. It's very similar to a list that I believe won recently. But the sideboard is what comes interesting. And there's Mola Nakova just cleans up that Emily.
Ooh, yeah. Trumpets was hoping to dodge something like, Torch or Hailstorm, but how about a Mega Hailstorm attached to a twin-headed dragon?
Yeah, and that's going to clean it up here.
Yeah, it's going to eat 2 islands choices, but it can't. How do you feel about this unseal?
I think the unseal would have been better on the second one.
I agree with that. I think but because you have the torch in hand, it works out to lethal anyways.
Yep. And Mola Nakova, twin-headed dragon, going to breathe fire and landing all over Trumpets, and that's going to be the series.
Yeah, Mola Nakova is a card I'm hoping we see a bit more of now that there's a couple other reasons to play triple primal thanks to Jotun Feast color as well. So it's a card from what little I've seen and played with, I've been impressed with. It's more just it's been difficult to find the right shells for it.
I know we've only looked at 2 matchups and only in round 1, but man, this is a very, very slow metagame we're taking a look at.
Yeah, a lot of people are on Hailstorm and Feast Caller right now. They're just Feast Caller is a really exciting card to play with at the moment. One health doesn't seem like a lot, but when you're going from 3 to 4, that's one of the biggest health buffs you can get in this game.
Who's my Stone Scar hero out there? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, there are some Stone Scar players out there. I saw one deck at least rocking 4 Obliterates. So they're lurking. There's a couple. I think Chow Roland was on Scream Queen. I'm not sure how many queens are out there, but they're around. All right, I think there's 3 or 4 Bandit Queen decks in the field today.
All right, well, I'm excited to see how those decks do. I don't believe we have any more backups for round 1. So that's going to about do it for our coverage of round 1, but we will be back in round 2 to break down more exciting matchups for all you guys.